Hello. I'd like to just give you a little bit of feedback on what I see so far with the essay and respond to some of the questions that I've been getting. Also to encourage you, there's only a couple of weeks left of class, so we're getting very close. Make sure you get this project turned in, and then you said the one writing project left after that, so we're almost there. In terms of the essay, some of the questions that I received via email or that I saw being asked in the discussion board post. First of all, in terms of first versus third person writing, it is an objective essay, and when you have a formal essay like this, you usually want to avoid writing in first person as much as possible. Sometimes you need to write in first person. Occasionally you have a statement that you really want to make in first person. That's okay, particularly in the introduction or the conclusion, but throughout the body of the essay, when you're making your substantial claims, you usually want to stay in third person. You definitely want to avoid saying things like I think or I believe, because those are qualifiers that will discount the authority of your position some. So you want to avoid doing that. And you also want to avoid writing in the second person. So I saw some second person writing, that's the pronoun you. Avoid that direct address. Rewrite that in third person if you need it. In terms of sources, how many sources you should use, where you should use them, how you should use them, it's going to vary tremendously based on your essay. I would like to remind you that you have to use 2 primary and 3 secondary sources. Anything beyond that, I mean, you're free to use, but it's not necessary. Make sure, of course, that you document anything that you do use, but keep in mind that this is not the lit review, so the job of the sources is to support the argument that you're making. So generally speaking, you would use the primary sources as a way to show an example, and then you would make a discussion out of that example, and then you would use a secondary source to support whatever claims you're making, whatever analysis you're performing about the example from the primary source. So that's how you would generally use those. Not every paragraph is going to have a source. Not every primary source will be paired with a secondary source. Not everything's going to be perfectly balanced. Now, you don't want to lump everything together in one paragraph and then let the rest of your essay go. You want a sort of consistent flow and balance throughout the paper if you can achieve that. But beware of using particularly long quotes. You don't want huge quotes. If it goes over 4 lines, MLA dictates that it's a block quote. If you don't know how to format a block quotation, check your Norton Field Guide. It will explain it to you. And generally speaking, you don't want too many of those in your paper. A 4-line quote, 5-line quote is getting pretty long. Try to stick with shorter quotes so you can make clear, concise points. And you don't want your writing to be overwhelmed by the use of the source material. I gave you sort of an 80-20 balance rule. Even that's pretty weighty. You're still talking in a 2,000-word essay about 400 words of quoted material. That's a lot. So make sure you're not getting lost in the wash of all of these sources. So be judicious with the way you use your sources. Use them where you need them, and don't use them anyplace else, right? And then make sure your works cited page has all of the sources featured on it. Don't try to separate primary and secondary sources. One list, alphabetical, hanging in it, all formatted together. I can tell the difference between a primary and a secondary source when it's all done correctly. So there's no need to separate those out, just a single list. Make sure that your thesis statement is clear. Make sure that it does what it needs to do in terms of establishing an argument and giving some sort of structure to your essay, and make sure that all of the sections and paragraphs have topic sentences that are clear and connected to the thesis statement. That'll keep the organization the way it needs to be, keep the flow nice. What that means is you shouldn't have any paragraphs starting with quotes, right? Because you should have topic sentences. Generally don't have too many paragraphs ending with quotes, because usually once you give a quote, you have to talk about the quote. So unusual to have paragraphs ending with quotes as well. So watch out for that. You should be able to actually take your thesis statement and all of your topic sentences and just squish them together into a paragraph for yourself and look at that, and you should be able to read it. It should make pretty good sense. So if you have topic sentences, you should be able to clearly identify those. So it's a pretty easy thing to look for to make sure you've got that good organization. Watch your tone. So I saw some discussion about this in the discussion boards. Don't say words like stupid or idiot or dumb or weird or strange or whatever. Don't condescend. Don't upset your audience, right? Try to find nice neutral tone words to use when you're talking about these. You're not being persuasive, so you're not trying to use strong rhetorical appeals. Um, you're analyzing and you're making sort of soft arguments. So, watch the tone. Shouldn't be too much trouble. Also, make sure you edit well. I know these are rough drafts and they're in various states of disrepair, so I'm not too worried about what I saw. But some of you know you're not real great at proofreading, you're not real good at editing. I am going to be looking for strong editing, and so if that's an issue for you, you might want to take the extra few days you got for the extension, send a copy of your essay to the Writing Center, and ask them for a little bit of assistance in the proofreading and the editing. The same goes for the MLA. Make sure you've got that formatting down at this point, right? In text and works cited. Make sure you've got sources all introduced properly. Make sure they're all cited properly, that they've all got page numbers with the quotes where you have page numbers to give. We don't want any slips with the formatting, any risk of any sort of plagiarism scenarios. And that goes for these huge quotes as well. If you have an entire paragraph that's nothing but a single quote taken from a source, you're sort of walking on, I don't want to say thin ice, that's pretty cliche, but that's an unusual scenario, right? You always want more commentary than you have quoted material. And if it looks like what you've got is a paper that's pasted together from a bunch of quotes, and 70 or 80% of your paper is pasted together, that's not a good situation. So watch out for that, right? Trim your quotes. Do get to the word count, 2,000 words, roughly 6 to 8 pages. I can see those word counts. Obviously, if you're at 1,950 words and you have a nice solid essay, I'm not going to worry about those 50 words. If you're at 1,700 words, then yeah, you're not going to get full credit for that. If you're at 1,000 words, then there's really a problem. So, but at the same token, don't go crazy. I don't want like a 4,000 word essay or something, right? 2,000 words, 6 to 8 pages. You'll be in that 2,000 word range. Don't count your works cited in that, obviously. So that's really it. I think things are going pretty well. I'm looking forward to reading them. I really am. I'm very interested in what you have going on. If you have any last minute questions, make sure you email me sooner rather than later. And that's it.